Hey guys,
So,
and welcome to the second episode of Tiger Talk. My name is IWE, and I'm your host for the evening. My guest tonight is Casey Tyler, and he does his own preview videos and football videos and things like that, where he talks about different teams. And I'll put a link to his channel in the description. And if you go over to my channel, you'll actually see another link to his channel under the Friends tab. And I'm going to keep that there because I'm hoping that so long as I don't offend him too much, he'll come back and do more of these videos with me.
what's going on,
But
everybody?
tonight we're going to talk about the Arkansas game a good bit for most of the video, and then right here at the very end, we'll do a little bit about North Dakota. We'll do a little bit about San Jose State for next Saturday. But for now, I think we're going to talk about Arkansas and Auburn last weekend. Let's go ahead and talk about the first half of the Arkansas game.
Yeah, for me, the first half on offense, it was all about Jeremy Johnson. He was absolutely phenomenal, but the defense was pretty pathetic. I mean, there was just gaping holes for Arkansas in the running game. I mean, one drive they were getting like 20 plus yards a run. And there was wide open, tight end was wide open in the end zone for a touchdown on two of the drives. But, yeah, the offense looked pretty good except for, the very end of the first half where a couple drives stalled. What do you think about Jeremy Johnson?
Honestly, I think he could stand alone as a starting quarterback. I know that Nick Marshall is a senior and he's supposed to graduate this year. And to be honest with you, I was a little worried as to what's going to happen next year with Auburn. But I think if Jeremy Johnson takes the reins, it'll be his junior year next year. I think if he takes the reins as starting quarterback, I think we'll be in good shape. And really, looking at Auburn's schedule for the rest of the season, I think Jeremy Johnson can start a few games this year, and we'd be fine.
I think he could start every game, and we could be fine, man. I mean, he's so accurate, he's just, with him, and here's one thing that people don't realize about Jeremy Johnson is he can actually run the ball, too. Now, they don't know that because we haven't had to do that yet, but he can run he's a little bit different than Nick Marshall. He's not as fast, but he runs a little bit more like Cam does, more of like a power runner, but he's got some speed as well.
I'm actually really glad you said that because I was just about to say I didn't see him run very much this past Saturday. But no, you're exactly right. Like you said, he's not so much of a downhill runner like Nick Marshall is. Like you said, he's more of a power runner. Mm-hmm. And honestly, if I was in Gus Malzahn's position or Rhett Lashley's position, and I was looking at starting Nick Marshall over Jeremy Johnson, I would probably start Jeremy Johnson for the San Jose State game, for the LA Tech game, and the Samford game. I don't think I would start him for any SEC games. Mm-hmm. Maybe South Carolina, but I think if you started Jeremy Johnson, especially for the Samford game, I think he could do some serious damage against Samford, and possibly he could play the entire game, and that would give Nick Marshall a week off, for the Alabama game.
Yeah,
and I think
it's interesting that you brought up South Carolina because we all saw how poor their pass defense looked against Texas A&M, and there's no doubt that Jeremy Johnson and this receiving core that we have could do the exact same thing,
Oh yeah, I think Jeremy Johnson is just honestly. I think Jeremy Johnson is just as accurate as Nick Marshall, if not more so.
Sure.
People give Nick Marshall credit for taking Auburn to the championship game last year. I think a lot of that was the receivers and the running backs. A lot of that was Trey Mason and Sammy Coates and Cameron Artis-Payne. A lot of it was more than just Nick Marshall. Personally, I think Nick Marshall is a tad bit overhyped because of last year. I think Jeremy Johnson is a better quarterback, or at the very least can develop into being a better quarterback than Nick Marshall is.
Yeah, I think he's definitely a better quarterback, Nick Marshall is really dangerous running the ball. And think about, we really didn't pass the ball at all last year because we didn't have to. So I thought, everyone was expecting us to run the ball every play. So when we did pass, I think it made it a lot easier for Nick Marshall to do some damage because with Sammy Coates. And Sammy Coates is so underrated, I think. He's so fast, so big, and he rarely drops balls. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it was what was around Nick Marshall, and still is now, that makes him a little bit overrated and a little bit better than I think people actually think he is.
Yeah. Oh, I think Sammy Coates played beautifully last weekend, and not only him, but Duke Williams really surprised me.
Duke Williams looked phenomenal, man. And this is the best. I think this is the best receiving core that I've seen at Auburn in a very long time, man.
I'm looking at the stats for Duke Williams specifically right now. He had 9 receptions for 154 yards last Saturday.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, and a touchdown, right?
Yeah, he scored. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. But are you kidding me?
Yeah, in his first start.
Where was he last year?
His first start.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Where was, I was talking to someone watching the game Saturday, and I looked at him and I said, where was he last year? He exploded, and then I may be overdoing this a little bit, but to me, Duke Williams was the breakout star of the game. Honestly, I think Duke Williams Saturday was his breakout game, and I think he's going to get better and better and better.
Yeah, and I think he's going to open up things more and more for Sammy Coates as well. I think Sammy Coates is so fast. I think it'd be so much easier for Nick Marshall or Jeremy Johnson to hit him on the deep ball. It seems like that's what he does about half the time, And how many times did we see last year where Sammy Coates was wide open and Nick Marshall just overthrew him or underthrew him a little bit? How many touchdowns did we miss because of that?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that made me think of something I was about to say with regarding Nick Marshall from last year. I would like to see Jeremy Johnson maybe not start, but at least play when Auburn goes to Starkville to play Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go back and look at the LSU game last year, we lost that game because it was Nick Marshall's, and then a lot of the players, because it was their first time away, in a hostile environment. And Nick Marshall got so nervous last year. It was his first time.
Yeah. They just weren't ready for it.
It was his first time in a major university, on the road, and especially in LSU at night,
In the pouring down rain, too.
Because of that, I would love to see Jeremy Johnson play in a hostile environment. And I know Miss Starkville's not as hostile as say Tuscaloosa or Death Valley or College Station is the other one.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty good though.
But for a backup quarterback, it'd be a great place for him to start and get his feet wet in throwing the ball, slinging the football in a hostile environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just to get him more ready for next year.
But no, I completely agree with you. With some of the receivers we got this year and some of the running backs we got this year, I don't see a secondary in the SEC that I think could stop Duke Williams and Cameron Payne and Sammy Coates right now.
No, I think this could be. I haven't seen everyone play, but I think this weekend, from the games that I saw, I think we may have the most weapons on offense out of any team I've seen in the country.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like you said, not everybody played this first weekend, but I think you said it perfectly. From from what we've seen so far, Auburn's got the most weapons, and Auburn's depth chart is even a little bit stronger than most of the other teams in the SEC right now. I mean, Jeremy Johnson in the half that he played, he completed 12 out of 16 throws for 243 yards. He had an average of 15.2 yards per throw.
Yeah, and he made it look easy too. That's the thing about it. He was not. Think about it. It was his first start. Well, he started against Western Carolina last year, but that didn't really mean much. His first start, the season opener against an SEC opponent, and he went out there and did it like it was nothing.
Oh yeah, I think he got actually I know that he got kind of thrown into that role because of what happened with Nick Marshall, but. If like you said, if something happens with Nick Marshall, I think Jeremy Johnson is literally the next best thing as far as taking over the reins should something happen to Marshall.
It could happen too because Nick Marshall. Anytime you have a dual threat quarterback or any type of quarterback who runs a lot, and they're going to be somewhat prone to injury. You know what I mean? So I think our quarterback situation is as good as any team in the country's right now.
Oh yeah, I mean Georgia and Florida, and I think Arkansas found that out the hard way last year. That the harder you play, the more prone to injury you are, and I hate that it happened to those three teams last year. And there's, like you said, with Nick Marshall running and slinging the ball the way he does, there's a good chance he'll get injured this year.
Yeah, it really is. What did you think about the running backs in this game? With we lost Trey Mason. Obviously, a lot of people think that's a big loss. I mean, Heisman Trophy finalist. So what did you think about the running backs overall against Arkansas?
Well, I'm looking at Cameron Artis-Payne's stats and Corey Grant's stats right now. Corey Grant only ran for 87 yards total, and that was with 10 runs, and that that wasn't really impressive. I was a lot more impressed with Cameron Artis-Payne's record. He ran for 177 yards on 26 carries. I don't think he's at the level that Trey Mason's at, but if you look at Auburn's first game versus the SEC championship game and even the BCS championship game, Trey Mason wasn't at Trey Mason's level at the start of the year either.
Right.
So that being said, I think, like I said, Cameron Artis-Payne is not there yet. He's still got a lot of growing to do. But the other thing you got to look at is everybody, like you said, everybody expected the run last year, and Trey Mason was able to grow and develop as a running back despite the fact that every defense they went up against eased up on the run because they expected the run. This year you've got, like you said, you've got Nick Marshall and you've got Jeremy Johnson. Like you said, you've got so many wideouts that can stretch the defense and keep them honest. And Cameron Artis-Payne has a great chance this year of using that fact that Auburn has so much talent on the wideout position. Cameron Artis-Payne has a good chance of a good opportunity to use that to his advantage to kind of sneak in as a good runner. And I think, should he continue to work hard these next few games, against San Jose State and against Kansas State and against LA Tech, I'm looking for Cameron Artis-Payne's breakout game to be against LSU. I really am, because that's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 weeks from now. Yeah, that's 4.5 weeks from now. And should the focus be on the passing game with Nick Marshall, I think Cameron Artis-Payne has a great chance of breaking out as a running back the first game in October. And honestly, I don't look at him making a run for the Heisman this year.
Yeah, that's a good point, because he doesn't have to be as good as Trey Mason was, because we're so much more balanced on offense this year. So it really takes a lot of pressure off him. And we got depth at that position as well. Of course, we got Corey Grant, who's more of an outside runner, with the jet sweep type thing. And we got Peyton Barber and the freshman Rock Thomas, who they've really been raving about. The coaches have in the press conferences and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see, because they didn't really use anyone else but Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant, did they?
No, they really didn't.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they used any of the other guys. But yeah, the offense overall, just I don't see any complaints. The offensive line looked really good, and really what I was more interested to hear about from you is, what did you think overall about the defense and the way they looked in the first half, and then the way they looked in the second half?
The way the defense looked in the first half really kind of scared me a lot. That's not how a championship defense should play. And I understand that it's an SEC game. And I understand it's the first game of the year, and I understand that you've got players, that need to get comfortable playing the game again. But to me, if you're ranked in the top 10 and you've got and you're playing an unranked opponent who went 3-9 last year, and I know there's some people out there who say that last year's record doesn't matter, but it does.
Right.
The fact that Arkansas had a lot of players come back and they lost a lot of players too. I kind of feel hesitant to say this because of the backlash I might get. Arkansas shouldn't have put up the yards that they put up in the first half. But give credit to Gus Malzahn and his defensive staff. They did make the adjustments during the second half, during halftime that they needed to make, and they did shut them out during the second half, which is fantastic. That's exactly what you want to see. But if you're looking at being a championship contending team, Auburn's looking at hopefully making another run for the SEC title and making another run for the playoff systems. You can't rely on halftime adjustments to win you championships. That's not how championship teams play football. Championship teams play football by putting up the numbers on offense and keeping numbers from being put up on defense, throughout the whole game. And for me, that's always kind of been a problem with Auburn. Even if you look back at last year and look back at the 2010 championship team, they had a problem with that, with playing an entire 60-minute football game. And
right.
I think Auburn's most complete team as far as playing the entire game was 2004. In the last decade, Auburn hasn't really been that good at putting together an entire football game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think under Gus Malzahn, they're never going to have a really stout defense. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But they need to. I think as good as the offense is this year, if our defense can be just as good or maybe a little bit better than it was last year, then we're in the mix of things. You know what I mean? We have a really good chance. But yeah, what we saw in the first half of the game on Saturday, that was worse than our defense was last year. And
yeah.
I know they moved some guys around on the defensive line, but I mean, we have enough talent to where that should not be happening against Arkansas or against anyone. I mean, they were getting huge plays in the running game, and I'm more worried about the secondary. I think I like Jonathan Mincy and Jermaine Whitehead, but Trevon Reeves, who, if you remember, was the receiver for us last year and the past couple of years, he's been moved to starting cornerback, and I remember one play, he got burnt pretty badly, and the Arkansas receiver just flat out dropped it. You remember that play? So
Yeah.
I'm worried about Trevon Reeves. I wonder if he's still going to remain the starter or what's going to happen there. But you got to give credit where credit's due. It would look like a totally different defense in the second half. and they started bringing blitzes and bringing pressure. They got that one hit where they got the pick six off of, and I think that's what you're going to need to see. Need to cause turnovers, because we're not going to force a 3-and-out every time. It's just not. You never see a college team with an offense like we have, and a really stout defense. It's just not going to happen. But you need to cause turnovers and be good in the red zone. Maybe force field goals, and I think if we do that, then we're not going to concede as many points as we score. About 95% of the time, maybe 100% of the time. So that's the way I saw it. But it'll be interesting to see if the defense we saw in the first half will be the defense we see for the rest of the season, or the defense we saw in the second half. That's really what it comes down to.
But yeah, Casey, I wanted to thank you for coming on here with me and doing this video with me, and it's been a lot of fun, and we've got plenty of audio, and we may split this up into 2 videos, and I'll post one tomorrow and post another one probably Friday. But no, I just wanted to thank you real quick for coming on here, and hopefully maybe I'll be able to get you on here next week, post San Jose State game, and maybe do a preview with me the next week for Kansas State games. I think you and I both are looking forward to that game heavily.
Yeah, man. Just let me know anytime you want me on. It's been a lot of fun, and just let me know whenever you want to do it, and I'm more willing to talk Auburn football or SEC football or college football at any point in time. Just let me know, and I'll be here.
All right, so guys, I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to put Casey's channel link in the description below, and I'm also going to put it on my channel.
My picture is the SEC logo, and that's like I said, I talk. I'll do pretty much from this point on. I'll be doing previews and recaps of the Auburn game, and but more of my focus is the SEC as a whole, and I also am a fan of the Carolina Panthers, so I do videos for them as well.